We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you love everything in college football, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this Rebel Outpost, the home for the true college football sickos, with a donation to help us keep the lights on. Hit that $ where you make your comments, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody, and I mean everybody in the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. It is Wednesday, July 23rd. PJ Fleck got up on the stage, talked about 13, 14 minutes. There was time for one question. PJ Fleck doing what he does. The key word for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. The key word, now he emphasized two words. Multipliers. We're not going to talk about that. That gets too deep. The other word that PJ Fleck used is delusional. It's okay to be delusional. Take the cap off. Take the lid off. Be delusional. And if there's anything that I can do the moron from Minnesota, the fat guy from Minnesota, who sits in the studio that sits in the middle of Loserville City, and I am the mayor. If there's one thing I can do, I can be delusional. So I'm not gonna have any problem. I'm not gonna have any problem taking the cues from the head coach of our beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm gonna go ahead and be delusional. It is okay to dream. It is okay to dream. Beyond that, the ACC Media Days. I've been listening to it. Listened to the Wake Forest coach. Been listening to everything as much as I possibly can. And I sat back and I started thinking. Well, they've got an, the ACC conference. They've got an important game here on week 1, and then but that game is pretty important. Oh, wait a second, I forgot about that. Oh no, and of course that game right there. Holy smokes! The ACC in week 1. I'm talking about only week 1. I'm limiting this to week 1. Yeah, they've got important games week 2. Week 1, the ACC has got 7 games. 7 games. Now, I get it. Everybody's got important games. Okay. The Big 12's got important games to set the tone. The Southeastern Conference, they've got important games. The Big Ten's got important games. Everybody's got important games. But I would argue among all the Power 4 conferences, among the top G5 schools that are looking to make a run to be the G5 representative into the college football playoffs, among everybody, I think week 1, I think it's not even close, but week 1 is the most important week for the ACC. If you look at the ACC last year, they got 2 teams in the playoffs because Clemson was able to beat SMU in the ACC championship game. They got 2 teams in. They both lost their first round playoff games. They got 2 teams in. This year is probably pretty imperative that the ACC does better in the playoffs. And they're set up for it. In my opinion, they are set up for it. I think Clemson is going to be one of the top 2-3 teams in the country with the real shot to win the national championship. I think Miami is going to be a better football team this year than they were last year. I think they will be. I'm not sure they're going to be able to make the ACC championship game, though. But they're going to be knocking on the door for the college football playoffs. You've got Louisville. I think Louisville is set up to make a run. I don't know if they're going to be able to get there, but they are set up. SMU, they believe. SMU believes. I don't quite believe, but SMU believes. We have not done a spotlight on SMU. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. We have not done a spotlight on Miami yet. We've done one on Clemson. We've done one on the Pittsburgh Panthers. I think Pittsburgh Panthers are an incredibly interesting team this year. They're absolutely stacked at elite linebackers. They've got Desmond Reed, the running back. The only question I have about the Panthers is, well, I got more than one question, but the one big question is Eli Holstein. You got to get rid of the ball, son. You've got to get rid of the ball. He got hammered last year. He tried to make too many plays with his legs. I know he had to make some plays because that offensive line collapsed. The team collapsed the second half of the season. But Pittsburgh's got an interesting team. Georgia Tech, Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, Malik Rutherford still there. Efford, the great linebacker, they just redid the contract for the offensive coordinator. What, $1.5 million a year, something like that. Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, they believe. You've got a lot of believers in the ACC. And it's not fair. What I'm about to say, it is not fair. It's not fair to judge a conference, its strength of conference, over week one results. Week one, when everybody's trying to get their feet wet. When a lot of teams are avoiding playing a tough team in week one. It's not fair. It's not fair, but it's reality. The ACC, in how the conference is judged, going into week two, going into week three, going into conference play, is going to be highly influenced, in my opinion, wrongly, but I think it's just going to happen. Maybe I'm part of the problem, because we're going to do a show here. I'm going to show you the games. I'm going to show you the potential impact of the ACC, the results after week one. So I guess I'm part of the problem. It wouldn't be the first time. It ain't going to be the last time. The fat guy from Minnesota is part of the problem. But we're going to show it to you. And I think the ACC has got to come out of week one. They've got to come out of week one looking competitive. Besides Clemson. Looking competitive. That's the key word. They don't have to win. They don't have to go 4-3 in the 7 games that I'm going to highlight. They don't. They don't. They don't. The Seminoles do not have to beat the Crimson Tide. They don't. But they can't get blown out of the water. Miami doesn't have to beat Notre Dame. They don't. They don't. But you got to play, man. You've got to. Corey Heatherman, the defensive coordinator. That is a tough assignment going against Jadarian Price and the great Jeremiah Love and Jaden Greathouse and C.J. Carr, his first start. But Miami's got to be there. I mean, they got to be there. They've got to play. They've got to be there. North Carolina. Again, we're going to go through 7 top important games week 1 in the ACC. After this first 6 games are played, I mean, they're going to be more than 6 ACC games, but the top 6 games, the ones that are going to be most impactful to the conference. after you get through the weekend, then you are left with Monday night. Sonny Sykes, Josh Hoover, going against Bill Belichick in the North Carolina Tar Heels. Just that game alone. If North Carolina would have won that game, Bill Belichick, North Carolina has their season tickets sold out. They're going to have a lot more eyeballs. North Carolina wins that game. They could be 4-0 after the first 4 weeks. But if they lose that game, okay, not the biggest, but what if they get wiped out by the Horned Frogs? This week 1 is so epic for the ACC. We got to talk about it. We got to talk about it here on July 23rd as we get ready for the regular season. So we are going to do that. We got the Iowa Hawkeyes, the evil Hawkeyes, under the PATC spotlight. Mark Gronowski, the quarterback, coming from South Dakota State Jackrabbits. The running back that's going to take over that position. He's got a lot of talent. The wide receiver, the defensive tackle. We're going to be looking at the football schedule. The Iowa Hawkeyes are in the seat, and they're going to be under the spotlight here at PATC as we continue our spotlight series as we go through all the teams in the Autonomy 4 Conference and Notre Dame. And we already did Notre Dame. We have gone through more than half of the programs. We got some more to do, and we're going to get to it as the days go on, as we head into the start of the college football season. Dublin, Ireland, Iowa State, Kansas State. We're going to be doing a watch party. 11 o'clock in the morning Central Time. Noon Eastern Time. August 23rd. Come join us as we do a watch party. We kick it off 2025 football season. I also have a minor holy smokes update at the back end of the monologue. We went through the report of yesterday from North Carolina 247 inside Carolina. If you missed it, you should go back and watch it. But basically, sources are telling IC inside of Carolina basically the same information we've been giving you all. The leadership at North Carolina is aiming at the Southeastern Conference if and when they decide to leave the ACC. We poked and prodded on that report, like we always do. And we got a little bit more information that we want to share to you. Nothing is imminent, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing is imminent. So, if it is, then we got it wrong here at Peek Around the Corner. Every indication is nothing is imminent. Everybody is lining up their options. And as we have said, schools are going to be using other schools to get that correct blend. Schools are going to be using other schools to draft off of. Relationships are so important in all of this. It's a lot. It's not everything. I know viewership numbers are important. All the stuff that everybody talks about. But relationships, trust, partnerships, that is a lot. So we are going to be digging into more of that, giving you a little bit more information that we got last night as we continue to poke and prod. So we're going to have to walk back into the Holy Smokes Theater. just for a minor update. Just a small update. But I think one that is going to keep building the story, give us another dot of information to connect with when the time comes. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I do appreciate it. Here on a Wednesday, July 23rd, Florida Man is in the house. Don Scruggs is here. Chris G, Ryan Brooks, Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, the Pokes, Go Pokes, MBM, Jose, USC Trojans, Al Woody, Buckeye, Caleb Ramirez, Dave B is in the house. Thanks for coming on in. Go BYU, and even Jake Ratzlaff. AMAC is here. Stormy Cyclone is here. It's the Cyclone State, not the Hawkeyes. J-Go Blues in the house. I just rewatched your last show, and bam! Thanks for coming on in, J-Go Blue. Tim Bales is in the house. Bob Swanger, the big gunshot. Sunshine, what's up? Sunshine. Super Geniuses. PA No Fan is in the house. Morris Simmons is here. The Almighty Finn is here. Taylor Mott, Go Pokes. Rod Nix is in the house. D5 Terps. Go Black 45. We're going to talk about that game. We are going to talk about the Orange and the Vols. That's one of the 7. One of the 7. Chris G is here. Rod Nix, Ryan Willie on Wisconsin. Breeze in Georgia is in the house. Love Sports, Go Mountaineers, Canes Fan 1993. Thanks for coming on in, Canes Fan. Still Austin, Go Utes. John Grove, 1 month, July 23rd to August 23rd. Farmageddon. Movie Time Blues is in the house. The Architect is here. Justin R. Go Bulls. Go Bulls. What Bulls? What Bulls? The South Florida Bulls. Adrian Archer is in the house. King Spleen is here. Okay, let's get to it. First of all, we got to get in onto the Iowa Hawkeyes spotlight. The Iowa Hawkeyes are under the PATC spotlight. Mark Gronowski, the quarterback from the South Dakota Jackrabbits, led the Jackrabbits to the national championship. His career totals is over 8,000 yards, almost 9,000 yards passing, 81 passing TDs, 30 rushing TDs, almost 1,600 yards rushing, 42-5 as a starter for the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Now, MBM, who's an Oklahoma State Cowboy, Mark Gronowski played against the Oklahoma State Cowboys last year. And it did not go well. It did not go well. But he had a great had a great career at South Dakota State. And it's going to be very interesting to see what he does at Iowa City. He's got one more year. He's gone up from FCS to FBS. A lot of people doubted Max Brosmere, right, who was the Gopher quarterback last year, who had an outstanding season. He's going to be an NFL quarterback. He's going to be a backup this year. Mark Gronowski's coming in as the best FCS quarterback this year. Can he make the transition? You know, he's about 6'3". He's a little bit bigger than people think. He's pretty stacked. He's got a very quick processor. He processes the game very quickly. it's going to be very interesting to see. Very interesting to see. Kamari Moulton, backup running back last year, should be RB1 this year. 473 yards rushing, 5.6 average per rush, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 reception. I do think, now of course, they had a great running back last year, Iowa. I think this year is going to be more of a running back by committee at Iowa City. This guy, I think last year was Moulton's 3rd year at Iowa. I could be wrong. He finally ran the daylight, had a good season last year. Kamari and Jazz Patterson, he finally got the rock a little bit last year. I think last year was his 3rd year at Iowa. 309 yards rushing. Again, they were all behind Caleb Johnson, the great running back. Almost 5 yards per rush, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 receptions. I saw an interview with Iowa's running back coach, the Hawkeyes running back coach, saying that Jazz has lost weight. He's in way better shape this year than he's ever been. And that was in the spring camp. So Kamari and Jazz, running back combination in Iowa's backfield, we'll see what happens. They lost their great running back, and these 2 guys, can they pick up the slack? We shall see. Now again, look, the Iowa Hawkeyes wide receiver room, is there potential there? Yes. Can Reese Vander Zee do something? Possibly. Seth Anderson? Could be. Dayton Howard? Maybe. KJ Parker? I don't know. Again, not a lot of production in that wide receiver room. Jacob Gill, Iowa receiver last year, coming back this year. 35 receptions, over 400 yards, 11.7 average, 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, he's kind of the leader. He's kind of the leader in what I would describe as a very thin wide receiver room. Now, the Hawkeyes have been winning their football games mostly, except for last year. They had an incredible running back. Mostly on defense, and of course, their great special teams. The Iowa Hawkeyes special teams is going to be special once again this year. Back in is a great punter. First team All Big Ten, probably All American. Drew Stevens, the kicker, was fantastic last year. So their special teams is going to be special once again. On defense, you know, they've got a pretty experienced secondary. Deshaun Lee, TJ Hall, a great safety. But I went with this guy. I wanted to highlight Aaron Graves, the defensive tackle. He's a senior. He seems to be the leader of that defense. 6 sacks last year, 8 tackle for losses. 6 sacks. 6 of them. Going to be playing in the interior defensive line. If you look at the Iowa football schedule, that is not the Iowa, yes, that is the Iowa football schedule. I thought I screwed up there. At Iowa State, they go Albany at Iowa State, September 6th, the Cyhawk game. Iowa lost to the Cyclones last year, something like 19-17, 20-19, something like that. Iowa at Iowa State. That's going to be a great measurement once again for both those programs. And then Iowa plays against UMass. And I'm going to tell you guys something about UMass. Don't sleep on UMass. This year, I don't think they're going to be much of a problem. But going forward, I think I think they got brighter days ahead. They joined the MAC. Harris-Semiak, the coach, Joe Harris-Semiak, had a great career at Rutgers and then at Minnesota. And now he's the head coach at UMass. They're going to have a bigger NIL than any of the MAC conference schools. I think UMass is going to become a heavyweight in the MAC conference. They might not be ready to give Iowa much of a game here, but again, UMass is going to be a problem in the years ahead. Okay, so Iowa starts the Big Ten schedule at Rutgers. Then at home against Indiana. Then on the road to Wisconsin, at home against Penn State, and at home against the beloved Golden Gophers, at home against Oregon at USC. So, in the middle of the schedule, from October 11th to November 15th, Iowa plays rival Wisconsin. Then they play Penn State, rival Minnesota. Then they play Oregon and USC. That's a tough stretch of games, right? That's a tough stretch. There is a bye week between Minnesota and Oregon game. But that's a tough stretch. Then they finish off at Michigan State and at Nebraska. So there is the Iowa Hawkeyes football schedule. Now, again, I think Iowa is in the midst of a little bit of a slippage. Not as much as Wisconsin. Not what Nebraska has gone through for the last 7 years. But I think Iowa is slipping and sliding. My final prediction is going to be the Iowa Hawkeyes are going to finish in back of Nebraska and Minnesota. Bet ahead of Wisconsin. I think they're going to be about middle, less than middle of the pack in the Big Ten. And I think we're going to see a big change in Iowa City after this year. I think it's time for a change in Iowa. A great fan base, a spectacular fan base. Iowa Hawkeyes, but I think there's going to be a great change. Great change. At Iowa City. So that is my spotlight. Iowa Hawkeyes. I think they're going to be in for a tough season this year. Can they make a bowl? Yes, but I think that is the ceiling for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, again, we go back to the quarterback. If he comes out there and if he is playing at a very high level against the Cyclones at Ames, Iowa on September 6th, then I'll go ahead and reevaluate. But I think Iowa is going to take a step back, about a step and a half back here in 2025. Put down your comments in the comments section below the video. Let me know how wrong I got it. But I think the Hawkeyes, they're going to be competitive. They're going to be in a lot of close games. That defense ain't going nowhere. That special teams is going to be spectacular. But they do not have that superstar running back. Can Mark Gronowski make the difference? Can he make the difference? So there is your Iowa Hawkeyes spotlight. Thank you so much, Cobra Cat, for starting us off today with the super chat. Problem isn't quarterback or wide receiver. Iowa plays OGs as OTs, offensive guards as offensive tackles. Plus, KF likes to tease and hurt me. 8-5 records are equivalent to second base. An Iowa fan only knows second base. Thank you, Cobra Cat. I appreciate the super chat. I think 8-5 would be a really good year for Iowa this year. I don't have them going 8-5. 6-6, I think, is going to be their ceiling. I think Kirk is on the way out. I think this slippage is going to be more noticeable this year. Just like what Wisconsin's been going through. We shall see. Thank you, Jacobo Cat. I appreciate the super chat, your generosity. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on here. Very appreciative. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much. Matt, Iowa has one guaranteed win, that being against Minnie. Floyd is staying in Iowa. Floyd is staying in Iowa. That can't be. That cannot be. That cannot be. In the last 6 years, Iowa has won 10 games 3 times, 8 games twice. This has been as successful as they've been in decades. Maria Flugar is in the house, the moderator, the one who rules with an iron fist. Maria Flugar, thanks for coming on in, honey. Please give likes to my boy. Smash that like button. Smash that like button. Thank you, honey. Ron Lowney, UMass has never won an FCS championship. Okay, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. This is a new era of college football. UMass has got a bigger NIL than the rest of the MAC conference. Does that guarantee success? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I know their head coach, Harris Semiak, he's a good one. He's an excellent head coach. I cannot believe UMass got him, but he really, really wanted to be a head coach at this time. Very young guy. Don't sleep on UMass. Do not sleep on UMass. 6-6, yes. That's where I got him. That is where I got him. Let me know where you guys got the Iowa Hawkeyes. Ryan Thomas, making my call. Florida State and Miami to the Big Ten. UVA, UNC, Duke, and Clemson to the Southeastern Conference. The Cold War between the SEC and the Big Ten is about to get a lot hotter. Ryan Thomas is making his call. He says the Southeastern Conference is still going to do the big scoop. But instead of Florida State, it's going to be Duke. It's going to be Duke. That could be it. That could be it, ladies and gentlemen. It could. It could. And then Big Ten gets the blend, Florida State and Miami. We are going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here in the back end of the monologue. We got a minor update in the Holy Smokes Theater. Minor update. So, here we are. 7 games. 7 incredibly important games in week 1 for the ACC. We're going to start it off Friday night, Georgia Tech in Colorado. The spread is 4.5 minus Georgia Tech. The rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. Haynes King. Jamal Haynes. I don't know why my camera keeps going out there. Jamal Haynes, Haynes King. Efford, the great linebacker. Georgia Tech showing some momentum. They just signed their offensive coordinator to a new contract. What if they go into Colorado and blow the doors off the Buffaloes? That would start the ACC off in a very good way in week 1. Still Austin. Greg, you can't put up Greg the Gold logo and not play the theme song. Look, guys, you're going to have to get used to the logo. These are, now, I'm not making no predictions. Obviously, no picks against the spread. But you're going to have to get used to Greg the Gold logo because Greg the Gold is going to be around this year a lot. Georgia Tech minus 4.5. That is just the start. Now, week 1, we're only talking about week 1 games. And it could have an incredible, the results of these 7 games, fairly or unfairly, could set the perception of the ACC in 2025 right off the bat. ACC is favored in this game. Georgia Tech minus 4.5. They've got the quarterback with the experience. Colorado does not. Georgia Tech should win that game. Syracuse, Tennessee. The Volunteers are minus 13-point favorites. Minus 13-point favorites. Now again, Fran Brown had a spectacular year 1 for the Orange. They won 9 football games last year. Spectacular season. And Tennessee, well, Tennessee, you guys know I got Tennessee dropping off the cliff this year. I've got them taking more than 1 step backwards. I've got them taking a couple steps backwards. I'm not a believer in Tennessee, and it goes way beyond the quarterback position. Tennessee lost Nico. I'm leaving on a jet plane. Joey Aguilar, Appalachian State quarterback, is going to be the starter for Tennessee. Or at least we all think that's what's going to be the case. I don't know if Joey can do it, guys. I have watched his tape. I don't know. I think Joey Aguilar is too much of a risk taker to succeed. But I don't know if he's too much of a risk taker because that's his nature or he just has to be. Because that's how he's always played the game. But Syracuse, and we have not done a spotlight on Syracuse. Steve Angeli, the quarterback for Notre Dame. He's going to be QB1, right? Or it's going to be Ricky Collins. I don't know, guys. Angeli's got to be the quarterback, though. I mean, Angeli, he looked great with Notre Dame in the small time that he was able to play there the last 3 years. Every time they called his number, he looked good. You guys know I'm an Angeli fan. You guys know that. I've been talking about him for 3 years. A 3-star out of the state of New Jersey. I think it was New Jersey. Syracuse seems to be the good spot for him. If Syracuse, again, they don't have to win this game, but they got to be competitive. They got to be competitive. It would help if they were competitive. Second game. First one, Georgia Tech minus 4.5 at Colorado. Syracuse plus 13. Alabama and Florida State. Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback, has reiterated that he's not taking back anything he said in that interview. He said at the ACC media days, I got all the respect for Alabama, but I'm not taking back anything. He said his players back him up after that interview a few weeks ago, a month ago, where he said that they don't have Alabama, don't have Nick Saban to save them anymore. Holy smokes. Thomas Castellanos basically doubled down today, or it was yesterday. I don't remember. Alabama players are not saying much other than we'll give Thomas Castellanos our answer when we see him. Again, Florida State, in my opinion, does not need to win this game for themselves or the ACC. But you cannot get blown out. You cannot lose this game by 28 points. You cannot lose this game by 31 points. You cannot lose this game by 35 points. You got to be somewhat in the universe of competition, competitiveness. Especially when your quarterback is shooting off like that. Again, it's high risk, it's high reward, but man, if it collapses, it's going to collapse hard. Florida State coming off a 2-10 team. Florida State, one of the top 2 football brands in the ACC. Florida State just won a huge court case. Florida State is looking to get out of the conference. Florida State and Clemson are the leaders of the ACC. Florida State, if they get blown out by Alabama, again, it's going to hurt the ACC because Florida State's probably going to go on and win a bunch of conference games this year. Losing, fine. Seminoles lose this game by 13, it's okay. If they lose by 10, even a little bit better. If Florida State loses by 17, everyone's going to forget about it. If Florida State loses this game by 28, again, tough start. Those are 3 games, right? Georgia Tech, Colorado. Syracuse, Tennessee. Alabama, Florida State. And we're not even halfway through yet. What about this game? What about the LSU Tigers and Clemson Tigers? Clemson is favored by -3. -3, and most of the country expects Clemson to win this game, even though it's only a 3-point spread. But because of all the hype on Clemson, and I'm guilty of it, I think Clemson is going to be fantastic. I think Clemson's going to win this game, and I think LSU's still going to make the playoffs. But again, if Clemson loses this game, Florida State gets beaten up, Syracuse get whips at Tennessee. Do you understand here? Do you understand the importance of week 1 for the ACC this year more than anybody else? Holy smokes. Now, the other games, I haven't been saying that the ACC team needs to win. Florida State doesn't need to win. They just got to be competitive. Syracuse doesn't need a win, but it would sure help if they were competitive. Clemson needs to win this game. If they lose this game and everything else goes south for the ACC in week 1, it's going to send a bad tone. It's going to send a bad perception about the ACC early in the season. And we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We're not done yet in week 1. The stress test is real for the Atlantic Coast Conference. What about this one? What about this one, ladies and gentlemen? What about a Sunday afternoon? The nation is watching. Virginia Tech versus the South Carolina Gamecocks. South Carolina is favored by 9.5. The game is in South Carolina. Virginia Tech finished 6-7 last year. They're looking for momentum. They need momentum. They need to have a better season this year for Brent Pry to keep his head coaching job, or they're going to have to start all over again in Blacksburg. Quarterback Kyrone Drones, up and down, up and down, up and down. He looks fantastic, then not so much. Looks fantastic, then not so much. Virginia Tech's got a really good linebacker crew. We have not had our Virginia Tech spotlight, so we're going to wait on that. We'll do one later next week on Virginia Tech Hawkeyes. Again, they do not have to win this game. They don't have to win this game. But they cannot get blown out by Lenore Sellers. They cannot get blown out on a Sunday afternoon with the nation watching, especially if everything goes south before them in this incredible slate of ACC games. South Carolina, very tough game for Virginia Tech to start the season. And we're not done yet. We're not done. I think Brent Pry is on the hot seat. I agree with you, Karan Shakar. What about Notre Dame and Miami? That's Sunday night. Sunday afternoon, Virginia Tech. Sunday night, Miami. If Clemson has lost to LSU, if Florida State gets whipped by Alabama, Miami and Notre Dame going to be drinking ACC's milkshake again this year? Are they? Carson Beck going to have something to say about it? Mario Cristobal? Is Miami going to finally win the conference championship? Can it start in week 1 at home against the Fighting Irish? Corey Heatherman, the new defensive coordinator, going against Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and that new quarterback who makes Riley Leonard's arm look like a 5th grader, CJ Carr, with that tight spiral, with that gun of an arm, going against Miami secondary that was god-awful last year, but Miami's got 6 transfers coming in from the secondary. Reuben Bain, he's got to put some pressure on CJ Carr. And Miami's got to score some points, and they did last year. They were the best offense in the country last year. It would do good. It would be very good for the ACC if Miami can win this game. Clemson beating LSU, that's the biggest one. But if Clemson tumbles and trips against LSU, Miami needs to win this game. Miami needs to win this game. You cannot go 0-3 with your top three schools. You cannot have Clemson, Florida State, and Miami all lose. And then, of course, TCU, North Carolina, Monday night. After all those big games in the ACC, after all those big games, you got North Carolina and TCU. Now, it could be that North Carolina is riding the wave of ACC success in week one. Or it could be the opposite. Bill Belichick, national television. If North Carolina wins this game, holy smokes, the eyeballs on North Carolina. The eyeballs that North Carolina will have in their next games that they play. They could start the season 4-0 if they beat TCU. Now, the Horned Frogs are favored by 3. The Horned Frogs are favored by 3, and I think they should be favored. I think they should. A lot of question marks for North Carolina. Gio Lopez coming from South Alabama, going against Josh Hoover, who's well established. But if North Carolina wins this game, they've got Charlotte, Richmond, UCF, and then they play Clemson on October 4th. They could be 4-0 before they play Clemson if they win this game. The ACC does not have to go 7-0 in these 7 games that we highlighted. They don't have to go 6-1. They don't have to go 5-2. I don't even think they have to go 4-3. But they've got to be competitive. It should start with the Georgia Tech victory. And then Syracuse and Florida State, at least one of those guys are going to be competitive. Clemson, you got to hammer down and win this game. If you lose, then you need Miami to pick it up. Virginia Tech, can they stay competitive? And then North Carolina, and of course the great game, Notre Dame in Miami. So again, I just wanted to go through that. I was sitting there going, boy, that's an important game for the ACC. That's an important game. And then it kept coming and coming and coming. Holy smokes. Look at all these week one impactful games in the ACC conference. Expedition Greg, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do, my friend. Thank you, Expedition Greg, for your Cloak and Dagger membership. 20 months. Holy smokes. 20 months. You are hereby knighted. Cloak and Dagger. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Expedition Greg, for your friendship and for your generosity. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Carson Beck. Yep. Carson Beck. Let's see. Let me go through the chat here. Lowney's taking Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Miami will be a good game. So, Greg, if Florida State win, it will indicate what? It will indicate that Mike Norvell did an incredible job in the offseason. To beat Alabama in week one, holy smokes. It means that Tony White probably drove Ty Simpson to absolute confusion. It probably means that Florida State, a team that did not score more than 21 points in any game last season, probably at least scored 21 against Alabama's defense. It would be an incredible result for the Seminoles and a great result for the ACC. I don't think they need a win. I mean, I'm not a Florida State Seminole fan, so of course I have a different take on it. But I do think it would help if they were competitive in this game. If they get blown out, and then all those questions are going to come up again. If Thomas Cassiano gets absolutely thumped, then all that negativity is going to be coming back in. So be competitive. At least be competitive. Okay, we're going to go into the Holy Smokes Theater for just a moment. And then we'll get to your phone calls if anybody wants to call in. If not, we will have a shorter live show. Again, our Wednesday live shows are shorter than any during the week because Wednesdays are my most difficult days to get a live show up and going. But I was able to sneak in the studio and get some work done, and we were able to do Iowa Spotlight and set up the ACC games. The Holy Smokes Theater. After reading and reporting, and we all talking about the Inside Carolina article of yesterday by Adam Smith, I did some poking and prodding, asked some questions, even though it really falls in line to what we've been talking about here at Peek Around the Corner for the last 2 years, because North Carolina, they've got people in place. We've talked about it. Don't have to go down that rabbit hole. So my questions were more on why do you think in that article Clemson was part of the article when it said North Carolina is the head of the pack, looks like they're the head of the pack, alongside Clemson? What does that mean? What does that indicate? Does that mean that Clemson is being more aggressive than a Florida State, a Miami, and the rest of them? Does it mean that Clemson could possibly be working with North Carolina? And that's why they are part of this article. Or is it just the sense that North Carolina and Clemson have a tight relationship, and the sources, the multiple sources that told Adam Smith in Inside Carolina that North Carolina's aim was the Southeastern Conference, that they would just have it would be more likely for the sources to have that Clemson information. And that's why it was part of the article. Now, the couple of people that I talked with obviously do not know the decision making on why Adam Smith used the words that he used in his article. In other words, why did he bring up Clemson at all? Why did he bring up Clemson in that way? Yesterday, after reporting on this article and after, going back in those rabbit holes and saying this is basically everything we have said. And I also, we talked about the live show we did about a year ago, 8 months ago, whenever it was, when it was a live show, when we had Clemson and North Carolina holding hands at the front of the stage, because we had been told that they are very tight. After all that, on my live show yesterday, I went into speculation zone. No reporting, I was just speculating. That's all I was doing. And I said, what if the Southeast, now I'm going back here a little bit, guys, because we have got new people watching this program that did not watch the live show yesterday. We got new people that have never watched the show. So I'm going to go back a little bit in time. But I speculated, I was thinking, well, what if the Southeastern Conference chooses, for one reason or multiple reasons, economic reasons or ESPN reasons or presidential reasons or future private equity, private capital, whatever reasons. What if the Southeastern Conference decides that they're not going to do the big scoop? There ain't going to be no big scoop. It's too much of they're not going to go 4 schools. They're not going to go 16 to 20. Maybe ESPN will not allow it. Maybe ESPN, that new contract ain't to 2033, 34. So yeah, they can renegotiate it. Yeah, the SEC might do some crossover thing with the Big Ten, maybe, possibly, probably not. ESPN might be, they would rework that incredible media package that the SEC has and the institutions. They'll rework it if they expand before the 2033-34. But what if the Southeastern Conference not really want to go to 9 games? They don't want to go to 9 games, but yet they don't want to play each other any less than they do. What if 4 schools is just too much? Too big of a leap. They don't want to do it. They don't want to go to 20. They don't want to be the first ones to go to 20. The SEC don't want to be the first ones to go to 20. They feel no need to go to 20. They don't want to split up what they've got with more slices. They don't want to have to look at another they don't want the Southeastern Conference to have to look at another media partner. TNT might get more and more games, or maybe somebody else, but ESPN wants to have the whatever. What if the Southeastern Conference can't do the big scoop? And if it's only 2 teams? That is what I was poking and prying at. Would it be in North Carolina at Clemson? Would that step ahead of a North Carolina in Virginia? If you cannot do the full scoop, to have the right blend to satisfy everybody, North Carolina and Virginia would satisfy the presidents. Clemson and Florida State would satisfy ESPN. What if you can't do the 4? The couple of people that I've talked to, both of them, and I'm going to say this very generally, both of them chatted behind the curtain. This was not a discussion with the money purchase. Both of them said to me that it would be highly difficult for North Carolina to pull it off. To leave, to go to the Southeastern Conference with just Clemson. It would be highly difficult for North Carolina to pull that off. Both of them said it. But if they could, if North Carolina could politically not need Virginia's cover, if North Carolina could get out of the Board of Governors to go to the Southeastern Conference, this would probably be That was probably, not for sure, but probably the North Carolina Clemson duo would probably be what the Southeastern Conference would prefer over any other combination. Any other blend. If it has to be a two-team blend, and if North Carolina could pull it off, which both of them said it's going to be very, very difficult. But if North Carolina could pull it off, North Carolina and Clemson would be the blend that the Southeastern Conference would probably agree to. So, when I poked and prodded even more, one of those two, chatted behind the curtain, said, it may be an indication that the SEC, now this is a large leap here, but because of other things this chatted behind the curtain people believes he or she knows, he or she said to me, it could be that North Carolina and Clemson, because the sources at Inside Carolina mention Clemson with North Carolina, that North Carolina and Clemson are the ones that are engineering this whole thing. That they really have the power. Now, Clemson and Florida State have a lot of power within that ACC settlement. I don't want to go through that rabbit hole. When I do, I'll show pictures and stuff. I don't have that ready, but they've got a lot of power. So it might be an indication of a big scoop, but in North Carolina and Clemson being the ones that are communicating the most because they are very tight. We reported that to you all months ago. And this might be just part of the big scoop. There may be that Florida State and Virginia in there. So it could be this is just a natural leak of information to inside of Carolina that they would know that Clemson is probably part of it, probably leading it with North Carolina. Now, after we went through that, I said, okay. I asked both of them. I said, let's just say, for discussion's sake, that it is not a big scoop for multiple reasons. And let's say it is a North Carolina Clemson scoop. What happens then? What do you think what happens then? And both of them, now don't get mad at me, but both of them said Miami, Florida State, Notre Dame for the Big Ten. Without missing a beat, without a hesitation. They said if the SEC does not take Florida State, it's got to be Florida State, Miami, and Notre Dame. And I said to both of them, this was two different conversations, completely separate. But both of these people, and they work for different companies, both of these people mimic each other to the T. I said, wait, you're bringing Notre Dame into this. And they said, without North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami, the ACC isn't going to be relevant enough for Notre Dame. So they both said Florida State, Miami, and then I poked and prodded. I said, okay, you sure you need Miami in this? You sure you need Florida State in this? And both of them. And again, this is why I've been reporting what I've been reporting. The blend of Florida State and Miami, nobody truly thinks that the SEC is going to let that happen for the Big Ten. That blend is too dynamic. It's too valuable. It's too much. The SEC cannot allow that to happen. But again, we're going down a road here, okay? We're going down the road of if it's just a North Carolina Clemson scoop, what would the Big Ten do? And both of them said, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame. Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame. You're not gonna leave any of it out. You go to 21 and you just figure it out. You cannot leave out Miami. The Miami-Florida State thing is just, you can make sure that a Big Ten team plays in Florida, I don't know, once every 2 years, a lot of them, whatever. You guys understand, you are college football sickos. The dynamics between Florida State and Miami rivalry. And then the thought, both of them, they did not hesitate. Look, Notre Dame at this time. But I got to tell you, at the end of the day, this was just an article by Inside of Carolina. It's a legitimate. It's what was reported about North Carolina's aiming at the Southeastern Conference. That's real. I'm not going to close the door down at any other possibilities for North Carolina, though. I'm just not. Because North Carolina it's just percolating with different political, it's said in the article. If you ask anybody, if you could bring any national college football reporter into a room and give them a little bit of truth serum, North Carolina is not homogeneous. It's not all one. It's not aligned. But nobody, I shouldn't say nobody. Everybody that I talk with, and this is why on April 9th, I just went ahead with my prediction, knowing that my chances were going to be 1% chance of being correct. Not a report, but a prediction. I predicted the Southeastern Conference big scoop because everybody that I talked to can't fathom the Southeastern Conference giving the ability for the Big Ten to do the big scoop. I mean, for the Big Ten to do Florida State and Miami. They cannot fathom that. To the point where bringing up this Inside of Carolina article, which one of them had not seen, the other one did. They believe it's just part of a bigger scoop for the Southeastern Conference. North Carolina is the point person. They were the point person between ESPN, ACC, and Florida State and Clemson settlement. They're the point person, guys. They're the ones that are going to be working it out with ESPN. So they're going to be part of this story. Whenever this story hits, whatever happens first, as we have said at Peek Around the Corner, it starts with North Carolina. It doesn't mean they're the most valuable, but they're the biggest dominoes. So they're going to be attached most likely they're attached to Clemson. Clemson is attached to North Carolina. And again, the two people that I talked with, they believe Florida State's got to be attached with it. It's got to be. So there it is. There is my minor update. Just a minor update. I didn't even change the Holy Smokes Theater graphics. I didn't want to have this to be a Holy Smokes show. It really isn't. It's just a little bit of information off of the inside of Carolina. I had a couple of conversations. The Clemson, North Carolina thing is they're tight. Virginia and North Carolina are tight. If Southeastern Conference can only do or are only willing to do two, or politically, internal politics, external politics, economics, whatever it is, if they choose or if they only can do two from 16 to 18, the Clemson in North Carolina, as told to us by two people behind the chatter behind the curtain, that would be the blend that ESPN and the Southeastern Conference would prefer the most. Especially ESPN. The presidents, you know they want Virginia. But if they can only do two, if they only can do two, this is ESPN's preference. I have doubts, though. I have doubts that there ain't going to be a big scoop because I cannot believe, and neither can the two people that I just talked to once again, and it's always been this way, the Southeastern Conference really going to let the Big Ten have the opportunity to take Florida State and Miami together? And knowing that North Carolina is gone, knowing that Notre Dame is probably going to come to the Big Ten, I can't see it. But again, going off the inside of Carolina, again, we went into the speculation zone. But two people behind the curtain let us know that a Clemson, North Carolina, that is a very good blend for ESPN. Very good blend for ESPN. Okay. We are going to go to your phone calls. We went through a lot today. We did the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Iowa Hawkeyes spotlight. Mark Gronowski, Kamari Moulton, Jazz Patterson, who lost about 9 pounds. He's ready to go. Jacob Gill. Look, that wide receiver room to me looks pretty thin. But Jacob Gill is the guy who is at least bringing back. He had some production last year. Aaron Green, the defensive tackle. And look at that Iowa football schedule. Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, USC, right in the middle of that schedule. 1 week off. That's tough. Much more challenging for Iowa than last year's schedule. And the Hawkeyes, Iowa State, the Cyhawk game, September 6th on Fox. Cannot wait for it. Cannot wait for it. We'll probably do it. That will probably be one of a doubleheader watch party that we're going to be doing here at PATC. Most likely. Most likely. Okay. Then we went through the 7 ACC games that could tip the scales in perception for the conference. Early in the season, Georgia Tech, Colorado. Georgia Tech -4.5. Syracuse, Tennessee. You must be from Tennessee because you're the only 10 I see. The Volunteers favored by 13. Alabama and the Seminole Wind. Alabama favored by 13 points. LSU and Clemson. Woo! We're going to be doing a watch party on that game, baby. Nussmeier, Klubnik. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this game. Cannot wait. LSU, Clemson. Virginia Tech, South Carolina. Sunday afternoon, then Sunday night, Notre Dame in Miami. And then Monday night, TCU and North Carolina. I'm telling you, the ACC conference, week 1, more important to that conference than the Big 10, than Big 12, than the Southeastern Conference, than all the G5 schools, the top ones. Week 1 is definitely incredibly important for the Atlantic Coast Conference. We are going to open up the phone lines. The phone lines are open. You can talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333.
Call from
Terrific.
Is this Rick?
Yeah.
The floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. So if I'm interpreting correctly, the two people you talked to, if their info is good, then it's within the Big Ten's power today to get Notre Dame.
I don't think it's in the Big Ten's power. No.
Why not?
But I do think Notre Dame is watching. Look, Rick. I've been dragged over the coals so much on my Notre Dame thing, right? You guys know I think the walls are closing in. You guys know I think Notre Dame's going to have to make a choice. I think Notre Dame's going to have to go to the Big Ten. I think all this consolidation that has affected the biggest programs in the country, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, I don't think Notre Dame is going to be anything. I think it's going to affect them. I think they're going to have to make the jump. But I don't think they're going to start this. I could be wrong. Rick. You know I'm Greg the moron. But I don't think they're going to pull the trigger. I think they're just going to follow up when North Carolina leaves. When North Carolina leaves the ACC, just the psychological impact alone is going to be massive. Go ahead, Rick. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I'll say it again. I didn't say they were going to.
Yeah.
I said they have it within their power to be able to do that today.
Well, the Big Ten, okay, Notre Dame has the power to choose, right?
No, the Big Ten has the power.
No, the Big Ten don't have the
If the Big Ten offers Florida State, Miami, another school, and Notre Dame, is Notre Dame going to say no? The other three will say yes.
Look, you logically you make a lot of sense, Rick. You do. My only answer back to that is, and people are going to roll their eyes at me. People are going to be like, Greg, your cheese have slipped off your cracker. But I'm just telling you, historically, and I think this is how this is going to work as well, as the conferences and their legal counsels and their media partners are all gaming this out, and the presidents, the commissioners, I think it's going to follow historical patterns. And I think you're going to wait for the big domino piece to fall first. So I do not think the Big Ten is going to act until North Carolina can make the decision and does make the decision, because those are two separate things. So I don't think they're going to give up on North Carolina, but obviously it doesn't look good for the Big Ten, right? It don't look good for the Big Ten. They could not get North Carolina in 2010, and it don't look like they're going to get North Carolina in 2026 or 27 or 28. But I don't think they're going to give up until it's a done deal. But they're going to have things.
And that's where they're making their mistake.
Maybe. Probably.
Because if that's the case, there's no reason to not take control. They're surrendering control to the SEC. Why would you want to surrender control to the SEC? Why?
Well, the Big Ten's not surrendering control to the SEC in the college football playoffs, but yet the Big Ten are the bad guys. So I think the Big Ten, I think they have this belief because, to be honest with everybody in the chat room, I'm just being honest here. Notre Dame and the Big Ten have never stopped talking with each other. They both know that Notre Dame wants to keep its independence, but once they can't, then they're going to join the Big Ten. They both know that, guys.
On that we agree.
So that is what they really want, and they want North Carolina. And if they can't get North Carolina, then the pieces are going to fall to where they're going to get Notre Dame. And then whatever they get with Notre Dame, they're going to consider themselves in a very good spot. They've never given up on Notre Dame. They've never given up on North Carolina. They're just not going to give up until they lose North Carolina to the Southeastern Conference. That's how I see it. Now, I could be wrong.
Well, I don't understand why Tony Petitti doesn't pick up the phone and call Notre Dame and say, I'm getting ready to blow up the ACC. I'm going to give you a chance to have a say in who I pick to be first, because it doesn't matter if the SEC or the Big Ten cracks it open first. You ain't getting North Carolina, Notre Dame. That ain't happening. So forget it. The girl's been spoken for. She's gone. Move on.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. It does. It makes sense. You're speaking very logical, Rick. I can't
stand the SEC messing around with this. And Petitti just sits there and waits.
They know, they believe, they have the same perception as the Southeastern Conference presidents do in North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, the demographics, the growth. They have the same all perceptions, the university research, all of that. They want North Carolina. Until they lose them, they're just going to, but you make sense, Rick. You do.
Okay. Well, I won't tie up your phones, and I'm not taking my frustration out on you. I'm taking it out on Petitti.
Yeah.
He's pussyfooting around and needs to get to work.
Yep.
And what he does is he calls up North Carolina and says, "You got 24 hours. You give me an answer in 24 hours. If I don't get an answer, that's your answer. And then move on." Thanks for taking the call.
You got it.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Rick reminded me of the greatest pun I ever accidentally had. Hold on.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, can you hold on for a minute?
Breaking news.
No, not breaking news. Just Rick reminded me of a pun I put out there years and years ago when my brother Bill got his first cat. Him and Paula, who are great cat lovers. This was decades ago. This was 35, 40 years ago. When they got their first cat, my brother was trying to decide whether he should get, I don't know, what do you do with a cat's nails? You get them clipped or you get them removed? What, a cat nail?
Well, people have them declawed.
Declawed. So he goes, I don't know if I should have my cat declawed or not. And I said, Bill, quit pussyfooting around and get it done. And when I said it, we both looked at each other like, woo! I accidentally said that. But anyways, Rick reminded me of that. Ryan Thomas, thanks for your call. The floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I mean, our family, we have 4 Russian blues. So, but anyway, I think people need to step back and look at this, and I've said this time and time before. The war is really between Fox and ESPN. And, I don't think it's in the interest. The SEC has no interest in seeing the Big Ten become a national conference. That does not serve the SEC's purpose. That does not serve ESPN's purpose. It serves Fox's purpose. It serves the Big Ten's purpose, but it doesn't serve the SEC and ESPN's purpose. I think it's also important to note that the North Carolina Board of Governors, Greg, has 24 members. 11 of them, Greg, have strong UNC ties. Only 6 of them have strong NC State ties. And 3 of them have 0 state school ties whatsoever. So I would go back and say that and by the way, 2 of them have Duke ties. So you take the 11 UNC people and the 2 Duke people, guess what you have, Greg? You have a majority.
Yeah, and I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. I agree with you. I stated it. I don't know about. When we found out the Board of Governors, we talked a lot about it on the show. You and I talked a lot about it. Eventually, about a year ago, I would say, I finally came out and said, North Carolina, leaving North Carolina State is doable. It's likely. It's probably going to happen. Something is going to have to be proactively done for North Carolina State, but they're not going to be tied at the hip. Virginia is more tied at the hip at North Carolina than North Carolina State, because we heard the same thing. It's like, yeah, there's SEC interest in the Board of Governors. There's the head chair of the Board of Governors used to be a North Carolina State huge booster, but he's gone. He's not even there anymore.
Yeah.
So
and the person in charge of it now, she graduated from UNC Wilmington.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have any ACC connection.
So I agree.
So I think that UNC and Duke bring a lot of basketball value. You pair that up with Kentucky and Florida, and how well Alabama and Auburn are doing right now, in Texas. That's pretty valuable. Also, I think you take Duke, UNC, and UVA all have deep 100+ year ties with each other. You take those 3 together, that solves a lot of internal dissension amongst administrators and faculty and would-be influencers amongst those 3 schools. I think Clemson, I think it adds, I think they have good enough relationships with the SEC that they don't really upset the apple cart, and I also think Clemson adds football value for the SEC. I really think that Notre Dame's dug in to be independent, Greg, and I will disagree with Rick, because he needs to understand that the Big East is always there for Notre Dame to park its sports in. And if people think that ESPN right now, they probably get 4 or 5 Notre Dame games on their network every year through basically the SEC, through the basically through schools that are playing Notre Dame, whether it's the ACC or SEC or whoever. So if people think that ESPN is going to give up that inventory and let the Big Ten completely control it, they should think again, because ESPN will probably work with the SEC or the Big 12 or the ACC leftovers to gladly accommodate Notre Dame staying independent. I think that's something, it's a battle, but no one should assume that they have all the power. And I say that as a caution to myself, because maybe the SEC and ESPN don't get what they want, but I would say it's far from certain that the Big Ten has power to force Notre Dame to do what it wants. I think it really depends on what the SEC and ESPN are willing to give it and willing to work with it to accommodate its independence. I think ultimately, Greg, and this is why I say something, and I'm going to tell you right now my shot, and then I'll get off the phone. I think if that's the case, then the only value adds for the Big Ten are FSU and Miami. Now, will the SEC let that happen? I don't know. I think they would be dumb to let that happen, but I wouldn't put it past certain SEC presidents and SEC arrogance to ignore that. But if that happens, those are the only two that make money sense. And those two are more like revenue neutral. If Oregon and Washington only got half shares, I can guarantee you that FSU and Miami are not paying full freight for Stanford or for Georgia Tech or for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would probably likely mean that Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, NC State, and Louisville end up in the Big 12 playing crossover games against Kentucky, crossover games against UGA, against UVA and UNC, and then you have some good old Southwestern Conference rivalry rematches between SEC and Big 12 schools, and your mark all of a sudden has maybe 12 or 13 SEC games, and maybe, just maybe, Greg, in my grand conspiracy, maybe that's why Brett supports the 5+11 despite the numbers being against him. That's all I have. Take care, Greg. Great
You got
show.
it. Appreciate it, buddy. Great call. Great call, BYU Cougar, Ryan Thomas, Mr. Indiana Hoosier, Ricky Tungate. Thank you so much for your 5 gifted memberships. Hold on, Ricky. Hold on, Ricky.
Call from
Patron.
Patron, can you hold on for a moment, please?
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it. I'm falling behind. Ricky Tungate, thank you, Mr. Hoosier. Thank you so much for your 5 gifted membership. Your incredible generosity helping us keep the lights on. I'm very fortunate you are part of the PATC family, Mr. Tungate. Thank you so very much. Indiana Hoosiers, we have not done a spotlight at Indiana yet. We're probably going to do one by the end of the week. This is Big Ten Media Days. We got a lot more schools to get to, but we've gone through 50%, more than 50%, but we have not done D'Angelo Pons, Mendoza. We've talked a lot of Surratt. We've talked a lot of Indiana football, but we have not done the official spotlight on them. Not quite yet. Mr. Tungate, thank you so much. And for the 5, and I don't have the names anymore in front of me, the 5 who were gifted a membership because of Mr. Ricky Tungate's incredible generosity, please, when you have an opportunity, please say thank you to Ricky in the chat room. All 5 of you who were just given a membership are officially knighted. Cloak and Dagger. Congratulations to being members of our program. You can go to our library of episodes and you can watch them all, including our members only Cloak and Dagger episodes. Patron, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it so very much. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Greg. Hey, I know it's a Wednesday for you, so I'll keep things brief. Just 3 quick points. First is to kind of like reiterate something that, Ryan had just spoken about. Don't underestimate ESPN's desire to keep Fox out of certain markets or to establish that, national control. Because if you remember what happened with Texas and the, PAC-16, affair back in the day, they literally gave that sweetheart deal to Texas with the Longhorn Network, supposedly just to keep Fox from getting those properties. I wouldn't count them out of anything. Second thing, sort of piggybacking on that is, Greg, I don't know, have you seen any of this news about ESPN buying like NFL Red Zone?
Yeah,
or something like that?
I've read a little bit about it. It looks like it's going to happen, right? So
yeah.
That's
it seems
a
like
lot
it was
of
already
money.
done deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you if this had any implications, like with college football, or like maybe they didn't go to 9. They don't have to pay for the 9 games, so they can pay for the NFL games, something like that. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think the ninth game. I think the money's there for the ninth game. We've had reports on it. There's been multiple reports from multiple different outlets saying that the money would be there for the SEC schools if they wanted to go to the ninth conference game. It would be between an extra $50 to $80 million, which would be an extra $3 to $5 million per team. I think money. Of course, it's easy for me to say, but I think money being added for a ninth conference game is a drop in the bucket from what it's going to cost for ESPN to get that NFL red zone. I will say this. ESPN, Southeastern Conference games make money for ESPN. So we can think about, here's the extra cost. Is ESPN going to have the money? But ESPN makes money off of SEC content. And I keep saying that about the Big Ten, and people keep saying, the ratings and their media partners make money off of Big Ten content. So they're not going from 9 to 8 conference games. The SEC might go to 8 to 9. If they do it, I think ESPN's going to be okay. But that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Patron.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's interesting that you put that $80 million number on it, because I think, if I recall correctly, didn't Stephen A. Smith sign like a $100 million contract with them? Yeah, so it kind of puts things into perspective, right? I'm still waiting to see how much that contract you signed with Fox is going to be one day, Greg.
I'm unhireable. I've talked about this before. I had a few opportunities to join certain YouTube networks, college football networks. And I said, sorry, I appreciate it, but I had a radio opportunity. I had an opportunity to join somebody from the South, and I'd be from the North, and we were going to do this college football Civil War type of thing. And I turned that down because I kind of like to fly solo. So I'm not going to be, Fox ain't going to hire me. No one's going to hire me. You guys can barely stand me at all anyways. So that none of that's going to happen. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Yeah, so my last point is going to be this. You've talked about like Florida State in terms of expansion, and it seems like in the big scoop, like you can say like North Carolina, Clemson, and then possibly Virginia would be like the first three in priority. Florida State has kind of been bumped down a little bit based on this reporting. And, you've talked about, like, you've given different reasons why schools like Wisconsin may not want Florida State, for the political reasons, or why Notre Dame might not want Florida State because of, like, the airport and stuff, or lack thereof. But, once you had mentioned something that, like, very, very briefly, but you never expounded on it, like, within the SEC, the attitudes toward Florida State, you had mentioned that one of the schools that was against Florida State joining was Georgia. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It's not Florida, Alabama, or Auburn, or whatever. It was Georgia. And what is it about Florida State as opposed to Clemson that Georgia would seemingly, not favor of, Florida State joining?
I don't know the reasons behind it. I don't know the reasons behind it, but I will tell you, it's 100% accurate. We were told that even before we did our June 15th, 2024 show, our live show, when we said that Florida State and Clemson were not the number one targets for the SEC of the Big Ten. It's North Carolina. And we were told at that time that Georgia's president, Mr. Moorhead, is against Florida State and a few other schools. But, that was a year ago. Florida State and Clemson won a massive victory. It's going to cost them a lot less to get out. They're going to get out earlier than anybody thought, or they have an opportunity. The ACC actually has to accept the check which wasn't the case before, but they have, in accordance to the settlement, they're going to have to accept the check. The world has changed, even in the last year, with rev share and everything, and competition and talent being spread out. And so I think I still believe that North Carolina is they are the number one targets. North Carolina, Notre Dame, of course. But again, since April of this year, my prediction has been the SEC takes the big scoop. Because even with all the difficulties back and forth, neither school's... Miami's got a problem with Wisconsin right now. So, again, but when it comes to these type of major movements, these issues can be solved. And if the Southeastern Conference goes ahead, and we're just speculating here, they go ahead and take a North Carolina and Clemson and they stop, then the Big Ten, I do not know how they refuse Fox and how they refuse CBS and NBC. I don't know how they refuse a Florida State and Miami blend when the presidents will get their back scratched with Miami, and I don't know. I don't know how they refuse that, if that's what happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I agree with it. All right, man, that's all I got. You have a great day.
You got it, buddy. Appreciate the call, Patron. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Helmer Hennison. Maybe Florida State perceived value has gone down. Virginia could end up being the redheaded stepchild. Do we see Cheeseburger in Greg's future? Do we see Cheeseburger in Greg's future in regards to the Big Ten and the SEC not getting their 4 automatic bids? Yeah, I think that's the chalk. I think the chalk is I'm going to be eating a cheeseburger on December 1st or December 2nd. In regards to Florida State's perceived value going down, I don't think so. I don't know how that's possible. A 2-10 season, Florida State could go 2-10 this year, and I don't think their value goes down at all. That's just not how it works. It's not how it works. When you have a big brand with a huge fan base, and when your brand is so impactful, it just doesn't go away. It doesn't really. I mean, look, Nebraska has a much more valuable brand than Minnesota. That hasn't changed over the last 7 years, even though Minnesota has been a much better football program. The gap hasn't closed. I mean, maybe Nebraska's brand has withered a little bit. But I cannot see Florida State's perceived value has not gone down. Virginia has always been in this game because they are truly North Carolina's. They truly are brothers. They are in so many different ways. And they both can give the other university political cover if they both go to the SEC. And the SEC does have interest in Virginia. We're speculating off an Inside Carolina article that only brought up Clemson, but the big scoop could definitely still be in play. I think it is. It's why I made the prediction. I think it's Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson. But if the SEC can only go for 2 and they need the blend to make it work, then maybe it is North Carolina and Clemson. I don't think Florida State's value has gone down a lick. In fact, I would argue over the last 13 months, since I did my live show, that Florida State's value has probably gone up a little bit because of what they're doing with research, what the state of Florida just did. in supporting genome genetics research. Not Miami. Miami's already in the thick of it, but USF and UCF and Gainesville, Florida, and Florida State supporting their genetic research. I think Florida State has gone up in value. Now, I will, in the Big Ten eyes, but I will say the state of Florida jumping in on Gainesville, Florida Gators president choice, overstepping, getting involved in overriding the regents of the University of Florida, that wasn't good. The Big Ten did not like that at all. They don't want the state board to come in, and when your regents have voted unanimously for your next president, they don't want but that's not Florida State's fault. That's not University of Florida's fault, but they don't like that. No, I think Florida State's perceived value in the Big Ten has gone up, at least a little bit. That 2-10 record doesn't. The Big Ten presidents don't care about that. They don't. And the media value of Florida State has not gone down because they went 2-10. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, that's my answer. That is my answer. God, I got this gnat flying around in my head. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for the super chat, Helmer Hennison. Thank you so much for your generosity. I do appreciate it. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Rutgers in Maryland was about demographics. It's a lot like what North Carolina and Virginia is now. The Big Ten, if you read what Jim Delaney said, he said the Big Ten can no longer be a one-region conference. We got to be a two-region conference. And North Carolina and Virginia said no to the Big Ten. So the next, Maryland, if Maryland would not have said yes, then Rutgers would not have gotten the invitation. Maryland and Rutgers was a demographic move. Not just the eyeballs when it comes to cable TV, but students. Same thing why the presidents are looking at North Carolina and Virginia. There were not football moves. Sometimes it's not just about football. That's why North Carolina and Clemson is that blend. Or the North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Clemson is the blend.
Call from
Evil Badger.
The Evil Badger is on the line. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing okay, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
Good.
With the possibility of ACC only being able to take two schools, possibly Clemson and North Carolina, would you then think that Miami, Florida State would be a target for the Big Ten?
Yeah, that's what my again, I talked about this early in the program when I talked to a couple people chatter behind the curtain, and when I poked and prodded, when I asked them questions about the inside of Carolina, one of the things that I said, could you speculate, just speculation, no reporting, speculation, if it truly is an SEC where whatever reasons they could not do the big scoop or wish not to do the big scoop, and they had to choose two teams, and they could a North Carolina and Clemson blend work, and they said yes, and then, but that it doesn't mean they're going to do those two schools. It just means, if there was going to be a two-school scoop, and if it ain't going to be North Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina and Clemson would work on a lot of different levels. After saying that, my next poking and prodding was, what do you think would happen after that? We're just speculating, but what would happen after that? What would the Big Ten do? And both of them, two separate people, two separate entities that they work for, two separate, whatever you want to call it, both on two separate communications. Both of them said Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame. They did not hesitate. They just thought that would be the obvious. All three of them. Because they did not think you could not say no to a Miami Florida State dynamic. You could not say no to that. And then after that, how could Notre Dame stay in the ACC? How could they stay there? And Notre Dame's markets are Big Ten markets. Where Notre Dame people live is where the Big Ten country is. In California, in Chicago, everywhere. Almost everywhere. There's Notre Dame fans everywhere, but their home base fans are in Big Ten country. So that's what they thought. So that's my answer to your question.
Well, do you think Notre Dame would give up to independence after, let's say, hypothetically, Miami and Florida State go to the Big Ten?
What was that?
Hypothetically, do you think Notre Dame would give up its independence if Miami and Notre Dame went, or Miami and Florida State went to the Big Ten?
I believe, and I've been dragged over the coals all over the place, I think eventually Notre Dame is going to be joining the Big Ten. Because I think it's just going to be more consolidation. And once the ACC loses their top brands, then Notre Dame's going to have to make that choice. This is what I believe. And I'm not the only person who believes that. I believe it. I could end up being wrong. You all could be sitting here 30 years from now and Notre Dame could still be a football independence. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's...
And one more quick question.
Yep.
Would Virginia, if you don't get picked up by SEC, would Virginia be able to come along with those three schools? Notre Dame.
That's a good question. It's a good question. They were not brought up by either person. That's a very good question. It's a great question. Okay. I don't have an answer.
And the Axe will be coming back to Madison this year. I just had to get that in before I hang up.
Okay, sir.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Great call. Thank you, Ryan Willie. Helmer Hennison, if you are around long enough, do you ever expect to tell any Herb Brooks stories? We all need miracles. I have a couple general Herb. I never met the guy, but I do have a couple Herb Brooks, like, if you watch the movie Miracle on Ice, if you watch, or if you were alive when United States hockey team defeated the Soviet Union in 1980, and I was alive, I was 12 years old. It was a great moment, especially for us here in Minnesota, because half the players on that team were from Minnesota. Not just University of Minnesota, but grew up in Minnesota. Herb Brooks, he was a head coach of University of Minnesota, and when we were winning national titles and in hockey. And Herb Brooks, how if you watch the movie, if you've read the books, whatever, you see how tough Herb Brooks was on the players, how hard he practiced them, what he did with the players to get them ready for the Soviet Union. You heard his speech and all that. That's how he was when he was the head coach of Minnesota. That's exactly how he ran Minnesota. So when he became the Olympic hockey coach and people watched what he did, that's what he did at Minnesota. Number two, I graduated from the University of St. Cloud State, which has a Division I hockey program, centralized in the middle of Minnesota, or a little less south, a little south of the central Minnesota. And the hockey arena is called Herbie Brooks Hockey Arena because he became the head coach of St. Cloud. And if it wasn't for Herbie Brooks, St. Cloud State would not have a Division I hockey program. So anyways, he meant a lot to the state of Minnesota. He meant a lot to the state of Minnesota. But of course, hockey was big in Minnesota before he arrived, and it's big after. Unfortunately, we lost Herbie Brooks to a car accident. I think he fell asleep at the wheel, and that's how we lost Herbie Brooks. But he was fantastic. He was a great commentator. For those who are not from Minnesota, you may see videos on X. Every high school hockey tournament, you see videos of the hockey tournament in the state of Minnesota be shown throughout X because the videos are crazy. The hockey tournament in Minnesota is much like, the football tournament in Texas. The arenas are packed full. Every town in Minnesota has their own hockey arena, and the screaming fans and the things that get thrown on the ice. Herbie Brooks used to do the broadcasting. He would do the color commentary during the Minnesota hockey tournament on TV, which always gets big ratings. And he did a fantastic job at that. So anyways, those are my Herbie Brooks story. I never met the guy. But anyways, I want to thank, let's see here. I want to thank Helmer Hennison for his donation. Ricky Tungate, Expedition Greg, Joe Cobra Cat, and Ryan Thomas. Thank you guys. I appreciate your generosity, helping us keep the lights on here at Peek Around the Corner. I want to thank the great phone calls we received. Ryan Thomas, Patron, the Evil Badger. I want to thank all you guys for joining us today, guys and gals. I do much appreciate it. Wednesday, July 23rd. August 23rd is when the season begins. Farmageddon. Iowa State versus Kansas State in Dublin, Ireland. We're going to be doing a watch party. Today we went through the highlight of the ACC big games in week 1. Syracuse, Tennessee, Alabama, FSU, LSU, Clemson, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Miami, TCU, North Carolina. The ACC isn't going to get through week 1 unscathed, but they got to be competitive. They cannot be shown to get blown out. Would you like Clemson to win that game to start the season against LSU? Yes. Would you like Miami to beat Notre Dame? Yes. But at least you got to stay competitive. It would help for everybody in the ACC to be competitive in those big games in week 1. To set the tone. Last year, the ACC got 2 teams in the college football playoffs. They both lost their first round games. The ACC, just like the Big 12, is hungry for success in the expanded college football playoffs. Week 1 is real important to the perception, fairly or unfairly, for the ACC in the 2025 football season. We covered that today, and we also covered the spotlight on the Hawkeyes. South Dakota State Jackrabbits, Mark Gronowski. How's he going to do? Kamari Moulton and Jazz Patterson going to be the combo at Iowa City. Jacob Gill, can he lead that wide receiver room to more production from Mark Gronowski? And Aaron Graves, the leader on the defensive line, 6 sacks last year. Interior lineman Aaron Graves. And then we went through the Iowa football schedule. It's kind of tough in the middle. Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, USC. Holy smokes. I do have Iowa with a ceiling of 6-6. Am I being too tough on the Hawkeyes? Am I being too negative on the evil Iowa Hawkeyes? Put it down in the comments section. I read all the comments even after the live show is over. I read them all. And then we did a little bit more information on what possibly was meant by that Inside a Carolina article from yesterday. Go back and watch that. It's earlier in our live show. It's the back end of our monologue. I want to thank you all for joining us. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel. What are you waiting for? We talk college football every single day, and we cover it all nationally. Everything. We cover everything here at Peek Around the Corner. Subscribe to our channel, smash the like button, and turn on those notifications because you don't know when we're coming on next. We could be coming on late tonight with breaking news to cover the breaking news. So subscribe, turn on those notifications, and smash that like button and keep your head on a swivel. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.